Cartilaginous fish, such as sharks and rays, are increasingly targeted by fishermen throughout the world. In 20 years, the worldwide catch has increased by nearly 35% to more than 800,000 tons. As a result, some of these species are now under threat, such as the spur dog we see here. European fishermen are also involved in these fisheries. And, contrary to what you might expect, the lion's share of the sharks and rays caught by EU boats comes from European waters.
Mithril placing of 5, 10, 15, 20, 5, 30, Mummery.
This is the fish auction at Lowestoft on the east coast of England. Alongside the cod and flatfish we would expect for the North Sea, there are also rays on sale, and they are proving popular with the buyers. These species are taken in small-scale coastal fisheries by fishermen like the Whiteman brothers, who work within UK territorial waters. Today they've taken cod and whiting, but like all North Sea fishermen who fish on the bottom, they often catch cartilaginous fish too, even if they don't intend to. This is what is called bycatch.
We target some ray called thornback ray and blonde ray because they're quite normal. There's quite a lot of them locally, so we do target those. But spur dogs are only for around about 2 months of the year when they're passing through. They're not really a full target.
Whether intentionally or not, every year from the Mediterranean to the Baltic, European fishing boats take around 40,000 tons of rays and small coastal sharks. So the fishery exists, and often there is overfishing. Jim Ellis knows the cartilaginous species of the northeast Atlantic well, because he heads a group of European scientists who assess these stocks for the European Commission.
Certainly some species have been heavily overfished. Other species are faring much better, so there's not one particular pattern for the whole group. So, for example, one species called the lesser spotted dogfish or small spotted cat shark is incredibly abundant. In contrast, some of our rarest species, such as the angel shark, have practically vanished from most parts of their range over the last 100 years.
The auction markets may be full of lesser spotted dogfish, but spur dog is a different story. This small shark can live up to 75 years and holds the world record for the longest known gestation period, an enormous 2 years. As with many other sharks, this extremely long reproductive cycle is one reason why they're so vulnerable to overfishing. These pictures were taken 20 years ago. The world they depict has disappeared. Spur dog used to be the biggest shark fishery in Europe, with an annual take reaching 60,000 tons in the 1960s. But catches have declined dramatically since then.
Because they were targeting shoals of the largest fish, which were female and often females carrying pups, then this really did lead to a drastic reduction in the stock size. So we think it's, as far as we know, spur dog is now is depleted. It's in research vessel surveys, the catch rates have gone down and it's less frequently observed. In commercial data, in the landings data, there's also been a sharp decline.
In 2009, EU spur dog quotas were reduced by half, and the European Commission has made it clear that it will ask for them to be reduced even further in 2010. Although spur dog is not everyone's idea of a great delicacy, it's very popular in the United Kingdom, where it's known as rock eel. Here, both at the fishmongers and in fish and chip shops, it can fetch as much as the most sought-after species. It's popular in Italy too. This is the fish market in Genoa. You can still find a few spur dogs here, brought down from the North Sea. But in Italy, as elsewhere, cartilaginous fish are increasingly rare. And the fall in numbers is not only affecting coastal species. There are 3 types of fishery which take sharks and rays. As we've seen, small-scale coastal fisheries catch rays and small bottom-feeding sharks, such as spur dogs, lesser spotted dogfish and smoothhounds. Deep-water fisheries in the North Atlantic catch deep-water sharks, such as the kitefin, the gulper and the long-snout dogfish. And finally, the large high-seas fleets which fish in the Atlantic, Indian and Pacific Oceans catch large pelagic sharks, such as the blue, mako and thresher sharks. And in all 3 cases, some of the species caught are showing obvious signs of decline. Professor Antonio Di Natale is an expert on large pelagic fisheries, and he's very concerned about the impact they're having on the larger species of shark.
La problematica più grossa che riguarda la pesca degli squali pelagici.
The biggest problem fishing poses for pelagic sharks is the catches made by surface longliners, which are targeting tuna and swordfish.
Per I tonni o per I pesce spada. In questo caso,
Sharks are also attracted by their baits, and so, whether it's intentional or not, they do catch some large sharks. How many will depend on the ocean, the area they're in, and the fishing method they use. Increasingly, however, large pelagic sharks are becoming the main target for these long-line fisheries because of the money that can be made from their fins. The result is the practice known as shark finning, a practice banned in the European Union. This consists of immediately removing the valuable fins of the shark and then throwing its less desirable carcass back into the water, with no thought for the sheer waste involved. The shark fins will be sold on the Chinese market, where they're used to make that highly prized delicacy, shark's fin soup. Today, demand for this luxury dish is growing, in line with the rising standard of living in China. Estimates based on the trade data indicate that shark finning may now be responsible for 1.7 million tons of shark catch a year worldwide. That's 3 or 4 times the catches officially declared. And while the European Union fleet is not supposed to practice finning, they are involved in this trade. The EU fleet declares a catch of 42,000 tons of large sharks a year worldwide. The Commission has established an action plan for shark conservation and management. As part of this plan, control of the ban on finning will be strengthened and simplified.
The practice of finning is still banned. If fishermen catch sharks, the fins can be cut off before landing, but the carcass must also be kept on board. It must not be thrown back into the sea. To prove that the carcasses have been brought back to port, the Commission proposes changing the current legislation so that the weight of the fins must not exceed 5% of the weight of the gutted carcasses. Whereas today, the law says that the weight of the fins brought back should be no more than 5% of the live weight.
The ultimate objective of the EU Action Plan is to get the management of shark and ray fisheries by the EU fleet onto a sustainable and scientifically sound basis, both in European and international waters. To achieve that, the first thing we have to do is to improve our knowledge of these fisheries and their impact on these fragile species.
Traditionally, for example, a lot of the skates and rays have been landed and recorded as skates and rays, and this can be up to, in various seas, this can be 10 or 12 species. So actually seeing how each of the different species is changing is very difficult.
There's still a lot of work to be done in the years to come to obtain this information in such a form that it can be used by scientists to understand the direct impact of each activity on the different species concerned. As well as improving our knowledge, the plan also seeks to have effective management measures adopted, and in some cases, action could come quickly.
We must take specific measures for each species, whether sharks or rays, in order to ensure the fishery is sustainable. For example, we might reduce fishing levels in certain areas or during spawning. Juveniles also need protection.
These measures could go as far as a complete ban on fishing when the condition of a species is judged critical. Sharks and rays stand at the top of the marine food chain. They have a vital role to play in the balance of our ocean's ecosystems. It is precisely for that reason that they must be protected, even if we have been brought up to think of them, wrongly, as our enemies.